Godzilla is handily one of the longest running film franchises in history, with an absolute plethora of entries. The original came out back in 1954 and was followed by a long string of increasingly cheap and irrelevant sequels that went all the way up through the 2000s, but with only a couple of exceptions, these seem to be the definition of skippable, although I wouldn't know because I have not seen any of them. But after the original, Godzilla was not really relevant again until 2014 when Gareth Edwards did an American remake, which was then followed by a series of American sequels. These movies, a couple of which have featured King Kong, have been reliable CGI blockbusters, but they haven't exactly been art. The closest thing to an actual artistic resurgence in the franchise seems to have been 2016's Shin Godzilla, although I have not seen that one either, so I can't really speak for it. But even that movie only got okay reviews, so in other words, Godzilla is just about the last franchise you would expect to deliver a quality piece of art in 2023. And yet with Godzilla Minus One, that's exactly what happened. I think this movie is a good example of how film can be both art and entertainment. It combines the city-stomping thrills of the American movies with genuinely good storytelling and character writing, but enough with the prelude. Let's get into the movie, starting with the bad, which is a category rather that I don't really have much to say for, so we'll just move on to the mixed. I think there are some points where the movie plays just a bit too standard or a bit too predictable. There are some major plot points that I saw coming just a mile away because they're not done in a very original way. I also think the dialogue is just a tad heavy-handed at times. I know the Japanese critics really hammered it for that, and I would not go as far as they did. I mean, maybe it plays worse in Japanese or something, but just for me, reading the English subtitles, it's not too bad. There's just a few points where I was like, maybe pull it back just a little. But anyway, with that out of the way, let's get on to the good. The elephant in the room for this category is actually not an elephant at all. Turns out it's a 160-foot tall kaiju named Godzilla. Godzilla's design in this movie is genuinely awesome. Like, I feel kind of scared and intimidated by this creature, which is something that a lot of the films have gotten away from over time. Godzilla is not supposed to be a silly boy who spars with King Kong. Godzilla is a ruthless beast with a bad temper. But as cool as Godzilla himself is, he smartly isn't actually the main focus of this movie. Instead, this is a movie about human characters who are deeply sympathetic and compelling. The story follows a Japanese kamikaze pilot near the end of World War II who abandons his duty to blow himself up. And because of that, he's left with a lot of like survivor's guilt. And so through the course of the story, he basically has to like come to terms with that and learn the value of living again. And it's incredible like what you can do with just a simple but well executed character arc. The filmmakers taking the time to write good characters pays off in so many ways. For starters, it makes the scenes where Godzilla isn't on screen actually good and actually entertaining. In fact, I'd say most of my favorite moments in this movie are just human scenes where Godzilla isn't even present. But on top of that, good characters make the scenes where Godzilla is on screen better because you actually care about whether the characters live or die, and that adds a degree of excitement and a degree of intensity to it. But most of all, it actually allows a message to be portrayed through these characters and their struggle, and I love that. And the message of this movie is one that I think a lot of us really just need to hear right now, which is that human life is a valuable thing. It's not a cheap thing that should just be thrown away. And by choosing life, not only do we give ourselves something valuable, but we give a gift to the people around us. I think I'm going to talk about this more in a spoiler review coming up, because I think this is a film that deserves to be seen and discussed. For now, I'll just end it with this. Godzilla Minus One is an exciting, touching, and ultimately beautiful film that is so much more than just a monster movie. In my opinion, it's an 8 out of 10.